Among gasoline engines in the early years, the best was 1.2 TSI. This is a simple engine that can be repaired by any mechanic. Low timing chain life is no longer such a problem today as it was 10 years ago. The vast majority of cars have a modified timing kit with a wider chain and a more reliable tensioner. Sometimes the turbocharger vacuum regulator fails on this engine. That's all. If the old 1.2 TSI chain engine is not tormented by short trips, where it will not warm up much anyway, drive quietly, if it has a DSG gearbox, then it is better to drive in sport mode, and fill in new engine oil at least every 10,000 km/1 year, it will last a long time. It's best to avoid the 1.4 TSI with 160 horsepower, -€5. This is the infamous twin charger, combining a turbocharger and a mechanical compressor. Even some professionals cannot keep this engine running for long. In any case, it is better to nip interest in super powerful versions in the bud, since they are often attacked by tuning. There are exceptions, but they are few. The 200 horsepower 2.0 TSI was offered on the Beetle for a short period of time. In fact, this is a unit familiar from the restyled Skoda Octavia 2 RS. CCZZ is a chain unit from the EA888 Gen 2 family, which does not have the best reputation. But the 2012 models already had a more reliable hydraulic chain tensioner, part number 06K109467K, an upgraded timing chain and other pistons with a wider oil ring and better drainage. The engine no longer suffered from low timing chain life or huge oil consumption. I have good news for you. Now, if you are planning to buy a used car, or learn more about your car, you no longer need to search for the information you need on the internet. We have collected everything in one place for you, on the website carme.pro. Here you can find out everything about the car, what brakes and at what mileage, any problems with engines, chassis or gearboxes, which trim levels are better not to mess with, and how not to lose money buying a used car. You will learn all this on carme.pro. There are two ways to check the timing chain tension on EA888 units. The simplest one is based on the angle of adaptation of the VVT phase regulator at idle. Channel 93 in the original diagnostics, a value greater than -4 degrees towards the minus side is considered bad. However, in practice this is an inaccurate method, since free play in the VVT phase regulator itself is added to the deflection angle. Experienced mechanics prefer to choose a more labor-intensive, but more reliable method, visual control of the degree of extension of the hydraulic chain tensioner. The extension of the rod is directly proportional to the degree of stretch of the main upper chain. The maximum permissible rod output is 7 notches. To access the inspection window, you need to remove the right front wheel, parts of the plastic wheel arch and the pipe from the turbine to the intercooler. The Beetle can often be found with an automated dual-clutch DSG transmission. Paired with the 1.2 TSI, 1.4 TSI, 1.6 TDI or 2.0 TDI, 110 horsepower, was a flimsier 7-speed DSG Type DQ200 with a poorly cooled, dry, clutch. This gearbox doesn't like being jostled in city traffic or long maneuvers in a parking lot. It has a shorter service life compared to the more reliable DSG-6, for 2.0 TSI and 2.0 TDI with 140 or 150 horsepower. Repairing DSG-7 is one of the most common problems of age-related Beetles. In addition to wear on the double-clutch discs, the DSG-7 is characterized by defects in the mechatronics of the electro-hydraulic control. Specialized services can sometimes repair it, but the cost depends on the specific damage. For small engines, it is better to choose a manual transmission. It is usually less of a hassle in older cars, and is better suited for the Beetle. The biggest weak point of the Beetle is its spectacular frameless door glass, which was not present on its predecessor. Or rather, they were only on the convertible. In this generation they also appeared on the regular hardtop version. To open the doors, the glass always needs to be lowered a little. This happens automatically. If in winter the glass freezes to the seal, it will not go down, the door will not open, and you will not be able to get into the interior. A good preventative measure would be to apply a water-repellent film, liquid windshield wipers, to the glass, but it needs to be updated regularly. Unfortunately, the constant jerking of the windows up and down wears out both the electric window motors and the window lift mechanism itself. Immobilized windows can catch even those who have a good battery and park their car in the garage by surprise. In warmer temperatures, when the upper door seal is softer, a car with a fixed window can be entered with a little reasonable force. But it will not be possible to return the glass back. This system is created for ideal conditions when everything works and nothing breaks. You also need to be careful at the car wash. When the engine ignition is turned off, the door window proactively lowers down. It is assumed that you are about to get out of the car. 1.2 TSI EA111 series, 1.28 VHPI, 105 horsepower, 175 Nm, 2011 to 2014. An older 1.2-liter version with an 8-valve head and a timing chain drive. The second Beetle used a modified and more reliable version of the timing drive with a wider chain. This is a simple and cheap-to-repair unit with sufficient dynamics. It is difficult to warm it up on short trips. It is preferable in combination with a 6-speed manual transmission. It interacts worse with the DSG-7 robot. 1.2 TSI EA211 series, 1.216 VHPI, 105 horsepower, 175 Nm, 2014 to 2018. Newer version 1.2 with 16-valve head, timing belt drive and cooled exhaust manifold. The dynamics plus or minus are the same, but it heats up faster and is a little more economical. Reliability is good. The problematic series of EA211 engines with faulty valve guides bypassed the Beetle. A series of motors with insufficiently tightened VVT phase regulator bolts have already been repaired. 1.2 TSI EA211 is a good choice. 1.4 TSI Twin Charger EA111 series, 1.4 or 416 VHPI, 160 horsepower, 240 Nm, 2011 to 2014. The most complex and risky version of the bold EA111 family. Combining turbocharging in a Roots-type mechanical supercharger, the unit confidently pulls from the bottom, but creates an excessive thermal load on the oil, increasing the tendency for rapid formation of carbon deposits in the intake and jamming of valve lifters. The timing chain in these series was no longer too problematic, but the tendency to burn out valves and dangerous pre-ignition, LSPI, which can destroy the pistons, remained, despite the modified software. Engine life depends on the quality of high-octane gasoline, although the manufacturer does not prescribe it. Timing of oil changes, no later than 10,000 kilometers, timely repair of any leaks in the intake, they can lead to the formation of a very lean mixture, easily causing LSPI, and operational loads. 1.4 TSI EA211 series, 1.4 or 416 VHPI, 150 horsepower 250 Nm, 2014 to 2018. Technically, this is a different 1.4-liter with a trouble-free timing belt drive and simple turbocharging. Unlike some of its siblings, it was available in a normal version, without the part-load cylinder deactivation function, i.e. without the ACT system. This is a good choice, nimble, economical and reliable with no obvious weak points. 2.0 TSI Series EA888 Gen 2, 2.0 or 416 VHPI, 200 or 210 horsepower, 280 Nm, 2011 to 2014. An old version of the chain 2-liter EA888 with variable valve lift, but with direct fuel injection. These engines were notorious for their low chain life and tendency to consume oil. However, by the time the Beetle 2 appeared, they received a modified chain and hydraulic tensioner, as well as upgraded pistons, which reduced the tendency to burn oil, though not to zero. The owners were more concerned about the high gas mileage. Take only those cars that have clearly been well looked after and that have not been subjected to crazy chip tuning. 2.0 TSI Series EA888 Gen 3, 2.0 are 416V HPI plus MPI, 162 kilowatts, 350 Newton meters, 2014 to 2018. A modified junior version of the 2-liter version with integrated exhaust manifolds and combined direct and distributed injection. More powerful traction, lower fuel consumption, up to a liter, less tendency to clog the intake tract with carbon deposits. An excellent engine, just like its predecessor in recent years. 1.6 TDI EA189 series, 1.6 or 416 VCR, 105 horsepower, 250 Newton meters, 2011 to 2014. The youngest diesel is a good fit for a Beetle. It usually needs 4.5 liters of diesel fuel paired with a basic 5-speed manual transmission without a dual-mass flywheel. The weak point is the sensitive Continental injectors, which should be fed with high-quality diesel fuel additives. It is better to replace faulty injectors before they destroy the DPF filter. As a result of the lawsuit, the engines received software that increased the volume of exhaust gases recirculated, which accelerated the EGR valve clogging. But the Beetle is not usually a mileage record holder, and a good example can still be found. 2.0 TDI EA189 series, 1.97 or 416 VCR, 140 horsepower, 320 Newton meters, 2012 to 2014. This is the more modern older brother of the 1.6 TDI, but with higher fuel consumption, 0.5 to 1 liter, more durable Bosch injectors and always with 6-speed gearboxes, manual or DSG. The 2-liter diesel engine became famous for the ill-fated hexagonal drive shaft of the oil pump module. But the Beetle got a more luxurious version of the engine, codenamed CFFB. A reinforced 100mm hexagon is installed here, which does not fail very often. The EGR valve failure rate is the same as the 1.6. Most likely, you will come across a chip engine, from which you can expect anything. 2.0 TDI EA288 series, 1.97 or 416 VCR, 110 and 150 horsepower, 250 and 340 Newton meters, 2014 to 2018. This is a new generation of diesels with a dual-circuit EGR system, a water intercooler for compressed air and a more reliable oil pump drive, but still without AdBlue. This engine is rarely seen on Beetles. The share of diesel engines here has been rapidly declining over time. A weaker version with 110 horsepower per 250 Newton meters, CUA, replaced the 1.6 TDI. The inheritance was a 5-speed manual gearbox 0A4, MQ250-5F, and a small 7-speed DSG with dry clutch DQ200. The more powerful 150 horsepower version was equipped with more reliable 6-speed gearboxes. The main weaknesses of the 2.0 TDI EA288 are the cooling circuit with an adjustable water pump, the tendency for the heat exchanger to become dirty and the loss of intercooler tightness. Main problems and malfunctions. Faulty door window lowering motors. Front axle play, the rear silent block of the lower control arm usually gets tired. Can be replaced separately. The multi-link suspension of the rear wheels is prone to souring of the eccentrics of the adjusting levers over the years. Malfunctions of the valve timing control, 1.4 TSI EA111 series and older EA888. Malfunction of the water pump, 2.0 TDI EA288, less often 1.2/1.4 TSI EA211. Signs, for TDI either incorrect operation, overheating, or leaks, for TSI, leaks. Noise from the 2.0 TDI EA288. It is heard mainly at idle speed of a cold engine. Misalignment of timing belt and tension pulley. EGR valve faults, for all TDIs, especially the older EA189 generation. Clogged cooling circuit, clogged heater radiator, TDI EA288 caused by chemical and thermal degradation of the coolant. Replacing with a newer G13 coolant helps. Order number 5E01211013, but only for TDI. Faulty fuel injectors 1.6 TDI. Loss of compression, 1.4 TSI/160 HP twin charger. Burnt valves or cracked pistons. If the pistons are completely destroyed, as a rule, the cylinder block also has to be replaced. Malfunctions of the 7DSG gearbox, clutch wear, sometimes also bearing noise or mechatronics failure. Intake flap failure, 2.0 TDI/140 HP. DPF filter malfunction, TDI EA189, usually the result of poor atomization of the injectors. Malfunction of the turbocharger control system, less often 1.2 TSI EA111, 1.2/1.4 TSI EA211. Failure of the regulator or jamming of the bypass valve rod. In both cases, it is manifested by fluctuations in speed, weak traction, and the check engine light. Decorative body painting and body stickers are quite common. This is no cause for concern. But huge wheels protruding from the wheel arches, lowered suspension, and a non-standard exhaust often promise much more problems than just visiting service stations. Stay away from such instances. I have good news for you. Now, if you are planning to buy a used car, or learn more about your car, you no longer need to search for the information you need on the internet. We have collected everything in one place for you, on the website carme.pro. Here you can find out everything about the car, what brakes and at what mileage, any problems with engines, chassis or gearboxes, which trim levels are better not to mess with, and how not to lose money buying a used car. You will learn all this on carme.pro. The 1.2 TSI, 105 horsepower, Euro 5, 1.4 TSI twin charger, 160 horsepower, and all 2.0 TSI versions are equipped with a timing chain without a fixed replacement interval. All other engines are equipped with a timing belt drive with a replacement interval of 210,000 kilometers, all TDI, or as per condition, 1.2/1.4 TSI Euro 6. For peace of mind, you can replace the timing belt, including the water pump, after 150,000 kilometers. Spark plugs are renewed no later than 90,000 kilometers per 6 years, and in the 1.4 TSI twin charger, 160 horsepower, no later than 60,000 kilometers. For all versions, it is recommended to reduce the air filter replacement interval to a maximum of 30,000 kilometers. Initially, the manufacturer recommended changing it after 60,000 to 90,000 kilometers, depending on the version. The fuel filter on diesel engines is updated no later than 60,000 kilometers. Most vehicles were operated with a flexible service interval for changing engine oil, depending on conditions, but no later than after 30,000 kilometers per 2 years. The change to a fixed interval of 10,000 kilometers per 1 year is appropriate for TDIs with lower annual mileage and always for TSIs. Oil for gasoline engines must comply with the VW 504.00 standard. VW 502.00 can also be used for shortened intervals up to 15,000 kilometers, viscosity 5W30. For TDI diesel engines, the oil must comply with VW standard 507.00, viscosity 5W30. For automated dual-clutch transmissions DSG602E, DQ250 with wet clutches, the gear oil change interval is 60,000 kilometers. In the DSG70AM, DQ200 with a dry clutch, the oil in the gearbox mechatronics is also changed, no later than 100,000 kilometers, although the manufacturer calls it lifetime.